This meeting is being recorded.
I used to I work there professionally, but I'm also a student in the graduate school. I don't. I just sacrifice things.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Next week. Next week.
Yeah.
Great guy.
And I'm my own.
Nothing better.
Okay. Okay, I propose to start, and because a lot of people will join a little later, and our colleagues from Europe now it's pretty late time, so I propose to start. Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I ask all speakers to grab their badges if. Okay. Yeah, if you want to join.
No, that behind the bag right there.
If you can find me, I'll move. Tell me what to do, I'll do it. Feel better.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
One, yeah, this works.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kateryna Odarchenko, and I'm happy to see IGAPA members. I'm happy to see IGAPA members online, and I will start our short briefing with history of our community and why we gathered today, because we have pretty long day, like from 3 till 9 p.m. And I will ask my colleagues to show a little bit presentation about history. So if possible, we can see it on our Zoom screen. So IGAPA community, it's community which was created in Europe. The main aim of this community is to form ethical rules to form educational projects for people who work in government relations and campaign management. In United States, in Canada, these sectors, it's, like huge sectors of economy. And it's still developed in some European countries, in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, obviously Latin America and Africa. That's why even in these countries, they really needy to a lot of knowledge about American campaign management technology and government relations and lobbying technology. So that's why, firstly, our community developed in Brussels, because all offices of campaign managers and lobbyists, they try to be near European Parliament in Brussels, also in Strasbourg. Then community growing in Eastern European countries and in Central Asia countries. So no, now it's not correct, but before some people in science called these countries as former Soviet Union, where sector of campaign management and the government relations is pretty new sector. So it's even sometimes no legislation. Sometimes it's only create. This sector only create. And we see that even our members taking very active part in some revolutions from democracy development process. So this our task of ethical force, of educational force, it's work pretty impressive. And you can see on our website, IGAPA.net, like all conversations and video from our discussion in Brussels. So if you're interested in deep how it works in Europe, please feel free to go to YouTube and to our website, and you can see our forums in different parts of world. So one forum was on my homeland. I'm originally from Ukraine, in Kiev. Other in Brussels, in Istanbul. So we try to understand also one in United Arab Emirates, which have completely different culture of government relations. So obviously they haven't campaigning, but they have very interesting culture of government relations. We also hold forums, educational project and experience exchange project. For example, between America and Ukraine, America and Slovenia, America and Canada, America and some different countries. For example, Moldova, Kazakhstan. And also our members today will talk about their experience of building complex infrastructure of elections and of government relations. For example, I see here Michael, who built this community of professionals in Slovenia, like from scratch, which is pretty interesting. So our community also very practical. So we try to have like boutique events, because people have a lot of time for networking, a lot of time of deep conversations, and time for discussing opportunity to work and how it's usually works. For example, American professionals go to help with strategic issues in European campaigns or in campaigns in other countries, and obviously people who from business associations, from business, from political parties, and who need support here in DC in lobbying, or support with some media work, PR work in the United States. They obviously also find partners here who can do contracts for them. In DC, which like pretty specific stuff. And I work directly because as non-profit work, I'm help this project of IGAPA and Institute for Democracy and Development, but I also lead consulting company, so it's also my business, to organize campaigns and government relations work. So business partners directly see this result of cooperation and how IGAPA work as networking opportunity. So That's why you must understand that feel free to contact our network who will be on Zoom today, contact our network also today, obviously, and all our conversation, we plan them half a year. They will be most practical. So first panel, so we start from global vision. I mean, about questions which important for us: polarization, disinformation, situation in different continents. So that's why we invite our respectful think tankers to present their vision. And then we moving forward from this global vision to, vision of practical stuff. So, okay, what tools we use in campaigning on like primary stage? What tools we use in social media in United States? What is difference of these tools in Canada, in Slovenia, and in United States? What's the price of work on different levels of campaign? Also, how we can reduce this price to, bring to win quite good candidates, but without big money from lobbyists. So all these questions we will discuss on today's panel discussion from global to local vision. And mostly people who will speak today, it's people who have practical experience. Because mostly also our internet audience, they need to have some practical tools. And as Jay more than 30 years do his work with educational, lectures and books, aim of our community pretty the same. It's aim of sharing ideas, and if some candidates will see, I don't know, from Africa, for example, they will see our conversation, and maybe they haven't money for expensive firms here in DC or in Brussels. They can take this knowledge, go to do grassroots, go to do door-to-door campaigns, win elections, and build democracies in their society. So it's our social vision. We also happy to see here people who graduate from the top people who lead the government relations sector, political center, and political management sector. So thank you, Ben, for your initiative. And on a lunch break, we have interesting presentation of George Washington University Graduate School of Political Management. Feel free to contact them if you're interested in these programs. We work today from 3 p.m. till 9 p.m. I ask all speakers to be in timing because it's hard work, pretty hard work, and all audience and also internet audience be pretty active in questioning. And if you have some questions about the IGAPA network, or if you need some contacts, like last forum we discussed with our member Miriam, that somebody needs to know like members from Europe or from Romania or from Egypt or from United Arab Emirates, we will be happy to connect you. And every year, for example, now we have pretty good work with our Bulgarian colleagues, which now hold quite hard elections with our Polish partners who also have quite hard elections there. Michael will talk about Slovenia. So today we also will try a little bit unfocused only from United States. So 60% of our conversation will be about United States, and 30% it will be conversation about other countries. Because on the last meeting of Harvard Business School, we discussed issue that all this type of polarization, it's pretty international. It's not only in United States, and it's connected with political culture, it's connected with new media, it's connected with economy. So let's try to understand deeply why it's exists, and what we can do to create better and more transparent communication. Now, so for first panel, I want to like global vision. I want to invite Jay Townsend and Stephen Blank. Peter also will join us a little later, and I will ask them to, from their vision, explain like global processes, and then we will moving forward to more specific things. So Jay, one of the people who do masterpiece in election campaign. So thank you for doing that, and please feel free to moderate this time.
So our Kateryna, our other panelists are late.
Online. Two people online.
Two people online. Who is online?
Hi, I'm online. Eli Hadieva.
80. Okay. Who else is online?
So we have and Dina on Zoom. Dina, we already have you. Nice.
Did you say?
Shaf to start, and she will join during the panel.
Okay. All right. So I'm Jay Townsend. I get to moderate this and just listen. So, as was stated, we're going to start with global and then get into some of domestic politics here. That's it. Is that better?
Oh, great.
Okay. So I'll just say at the outset, no matter how hard it seems that we try to stay out of things, there's always a foreign country or somebody somewhere that seems to want to draw the United States into a conflict halfway around the world. So perhaps we'll shed some light on this today. Stephen, I'm going to introduce you. Stephen is okay. Stephen is an expert on Sino-Russian relationships, particularly and especially Russia. Russia, despite the size of its economy, seems to be very adept at sticking its nose into conflicts that somehow involve the United States. So I'm going to ask that we address that today because the whole dynamic of what Russia is up to and how they draw Asian countries into their sphere of influence is of interest to the United States. Now, Eli, are you there?
Yes. Hi,
Yeah.
everyone.
Hi. Eli is expert on all things European. And Eli, I hope we'll get into some discussion where you can kind of offer us some commentary on the polarization in Europe and whether it's preceding what's going to happen here or how you think it will play out there, and perhaps even comment a little bit on what it is that's driving the polarization. Because sometimes it seems that things happen in Europe before they happen here. Peter, where is Peter? Okay. All right. And Dina is going to join us later. Okay. So, Stephen, why don't you start this off and just give us a little perspective on what you think is going on in the part of the world that is your expertise and how it affects both global politics and perhaps the election that we're going to have here next year.
Thank you, Jay. That's pretty much what Kateryna asked me to talk about anyway. So I'll try to get all that in. She gave me 5 to 7 minutes, but I'll try to do that also. All right, to make it as simple as possible for the audience here and virtually, both Russia and China believe that they are God-given, or if you're a communist, history foreordained, that you are a great empire with the right to intervene in all global issues and that this must be recognized. And if you will not be recognized as such, then you're going to destroy the furniture in the room that you're all living in. Now, that's a very simplistic analogy, but it's not untrue. Both Russia and China are states with an imperial mindset and legacy. It's very clear that for Putin, what you need to do is read his speeches, and for Russian public opinion, Russia must be an empire. What they call the great power, but that means that they have a global right to intervene in world problems. This is not something that Putin invented. This goes back centuries in Russian thinking, and it is therefore a challenge to any world order that doesn't dress is an exemplar and promoter, both by default, of democracy worldwide, even when we don't behave particularly democratically. We are therefore a standing threat to Russia and to China. To give you a quick example, 2006, Defense Minister Sergei Ivanov writes in the Wall Street Journal that the greatest threat to Russia is a constitutional upheaval, not war. In other words, the end of the dictatorship. Because Putin has restored the classic Russian patrimonial autocracy. I don't have time to find that for you, but that's in the literature on Russian history. You can find it. But that's really the kind of worldview we're looking at. Now, specifically, they are challenging democracy and U.S. interests, which are not always quite the same thing, on a global scale. That doesn't mean that dialogue is impossible. We saw dialogue with China yesterday, and today they're having the actual APEC meetings in San Francisco, where both sides and all the other members, including Russia, are discussing issues of substantial importance. However, I'm giving a paper on this in 2 weeks, actually, in Philadelphia. The Russo-American dialogue is frozen. They will not talk to us about arms control or about anything else. They demand that we change our policies as a precondition for talks. They will not renounce anything they've accomplished in Ukraine, and the annexation of both provinces. And therefore, although there is a dialogue, you don't hear about it because what both sides want is incompatible with each other. This has profound human consequences. We have 3 people who are being held hostage in Russia as well. And this goes on, and nothing seems to be effective. But I want to talk also about how this is going to affect our election. Let me begin here with a quote from Walter Lippmann, who, as you know, is one of the great, not only a great journalist and commentator, but one of the great American political thinkers in modern times. And he wrote during World War II in 1943, quote, "Our experience since the foundation of the Republic has shown that domestic division over foreign relations is the outward and visible consequence and not the cause of an insolvent foreign policy." Now, everyone in this room and everybody on Zoom knows that American politics are polarized. The evidence is overwhelming. But that is not the cause of foreign policy division. It is rather the result of policies that failed, particularly Iraq and Afghanistan. Therefore, that failure was bipartisan. But of course, neither side is going to admit that, because that would mean accepting blame and responsibility, even though both sides are implicated in this. And part of this game is that nobody accepts responsibility for anything these days, which is also part of the problem of polarization. However, the 2024 election, which is the elephant in the room now, if you like, is going to turn not only on domestic policy, but on the perception of the electorate as to what our foreign policy is accomplishing or not accomplishing. And this gets to issues that you may not think of, because there's, for example, there's a lot of public discussion now. If President Biden simply has the stamina to carry on for 4 years, and much of that is connected to foreign policy. I was just telling Jay before this that he seemed to have done pretty well this weekend, spending 4 hours in a summit with Xi Jinping, and that, I think, should dispel people's fears about this, but nevertheless, the criticism is going to continue. So, the issue of foreign policy impact on elections is not, however, only confined to the United States. In Poland, Jarosław Kaczynski, having lost an election, charged that the Polish election was swayed by foreign influence and propaganda, which means primarily American and German. So you see the influence of foreign policy or foreign actors right away. Putin has launched such campaigns in 2016, 2018, 20, and 22, probably is preparing for one next year. Here, we know that matters of record. He's going to try to influence the election, just as he wanted to get rid of Hillary Clinton. And this debate as to whether he actually, it was his action, so Russian actions that did so. There's no doubt who believes that he was successful to a considerable degree and has been trying ever since to do that. And of course, they're doing the same all over Europe. If you look at European elections as well. The global upsurge of anti-Semitism has come about as a result of Hamas's pogrom, for want of a better word, on October 7th, is also an example of foreign influence in America. One example of how you can prove this. Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, Saturday. At night, 34 campus organizations at Harvard all came out with a statement saying this. Now, all of you who are familiar with American colleges know that to get an organization to come out with a resolution in one day is next to impossible. To get 34 means prior coordination, financing, that's clearly. And if you look at the Anti-Defamation League report on this, on 2023 in preparation, they talk about funding of organizations by Iran, Arab countries, dark money, which is untraceable, and so on. So we have foreign influence coming into America to target an ethnic religious group, as well as to influence American policy. China, as we know, is conducting global influence operations, not just America, but influence operations here are being exposed quite regularly that China is doing. We see in New York City, the mayor now is under suspicion. Senator Menendez has been indicted for taking foreign money. And these are not just American examples. It just was revealed today. The leading expert on Putin in Germany took 600,000 pounds to write a biography of Putin from Russian oligarchs. I can assure you that he's doing a lot better than I ever did in this profession. But that's another example of the globalization of influence operations. This is not just uniquely American, but they all show the influence of foreign actors and actors who have a stake in the outcome, trying to influence the United States and other governments. Now, if we look at the election campaign at the beginning now, Biden's handling of the three current crises, China, the war in the Middle East, and the war in Ukraine, will influence perceptions of his leadership capability and of the success of his foreign policies. That's clear. So, for example, I fear that we haven't done enough for Ukraine. We need to do much more. Unfortunately, the Republican Party, or at least the majority of it, doesn't seem to want to do anything, which is a guarantee that Russia wins if it's successful. And I can say that with 100% confidence. Secretary Austin said so as well, and so does Zelensky, and I think they know more about this than I do. If Biden is successful, as he appears to be, in preventing a regional war, which is what Hamas wanted, if you can discern from the reporting, then he will have made a great accomplishment, especially as what I think is going to be the Israeli victory, and what looks like it, is going to lead to an attempt to negotiate a two-state solution. Whether or not that succeeds is a discussion for another year, literally. But that process, which Biden has endorsed quite strongly, publicly and privately, looks to be getting ready to go out of the gate once the hostilities stop. And then finally, the summit with China, and I mentioned this to Jay, was apparently a success for both sides. The idea that we are restoring a regular military dialogue, that the Chinese will crack down on the precursors to the deadly drug fentanyl. And third, that there will be common ground on the greatest threat to mankind, namely climate change, is a win for everybody. And it does not mitigate the fact that China is our adversary and that we are theirs, as both sides perceive. It just puts a floor under that and starts building a framework in which possibly all the issues that roil Chinese-American relations might be discussed in a practical and hopefully profitable manner. Doesn't end the adversarial relationship as many have charged. It's not a sellout. None of that's true. I think on those three grounds, you'll see that Biden will be, if he continues to be successful, will use that. And it will be done to impress voters with his ability, experience, maturity of judgment, and so on, in opposition to any of the likely Republican candidates who don't have the foreign policy experience for the most part, except for Ambassador Haley. I think we don't see Donald. I don't think anybody's ever accused Donald Trump of maturity of judgment. I may be wrong about that, but it's hard to see it in an objective way, let alone in a subjective way. So foreign policy will be used as a crutch, as a weapon for Biden's re-election campaign. Failure, on the other hand, will discredit Biden's administration, because for the reasons we just discussed. So, therefore, foreign policy will play a major role, and it will also leak into, if you like, the discussion about whether or not Biden's age is a problem. Because if he fails, it will be a sign that he doesn't have the stamina and judgment and capability to preside over all this anymore, and that somebody else, whoever that comes in. Now, the crises out there are great. I mentioned all the Russian issues that are out there: arms control, hostages, Ukraine, and so on. The Middle East, you see, we all know what those issues are now. And with China, the agenda of Sino-American differences is exposed everywhere. So very quickly.
Sorry, our one more speaker joining, and I will ask you meanwhile the discussion also to ask to or introduce our speakers or to.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So, let me just finish, because there are other major threats that link into this. For example, a major threat that I don't think gets enough discussion, because the Biden administration has really frozen the discussion on this, is the threat that is now emerging from North Korea with its nuclear arsenal. This morning it was reported they're now testing solid fuel weapons, which means another step forward in their capabilities. Kim Jong-un wants an alliance with Russia and presumably China as well, because if Russia and North Korea are allied, China will not be able to stay out of it. I'm talking about a formal alliance, a plan, document, all the things that political scientists talk about. This is another major issue, and this could explode with repercussions all over the world in different directions. The issue is not just a war that could go nuclear in Northeast Asia. The other threats are proliferation. We know North Korea has proliferated to Iran. They were proliferating in Syria. North Korean weapons got to Hamas. You know that from reports, presumably from Israeli intelligence and after action reports in Israel about this. So proliferation, which is a threat to everybody, it is a potential major issue as well. The failure to, I think, supply Ukraine with enough weaponry of the kind that Ukraine needs means that this war is going to go on for next year, and has encouraged Putin to remain adamant in the hope that Trump or somebody like him wins, and that the Americans and the Europeans, who we believe to be defeated, decadent, possibly sexually perverse, given Russian propaganda, will get tired of supporting Ukraine and give it to him. That's an enormous agenda for the next president, whoever it is, in foreign affairs. But if we are insolvent, as we were with Iraq and Afghanistan, which again, as I started out saying, were bipartisan failures. That means the Bush, the Obama administration, and many would believe Biden because of the way the Afghan retreat was carried out. I don't, in this case, subscribe to that, but it certainly reflects badly on Obama and on Bush before that. So if that argument about insolvency, which I just quoted to you from Walter Lippmann, has legs, then the next election will be indeed a major turning point in American foreign policy. Thank you.
Eli, you're there?
Hi, everyone. Sorry for not being in Washington. I'm in Madrid tonight. But
Look, I just wanted to make sure you're still there. Eli is our resident expert on Europe. All things European, particularly the European Union. So, Eli, I would just like to give you the floor for a second and ask you to add to what Stephen had to say about what you see as the dynamics on your side of the pond.
yes, indeed. There is a lot of polarization in Europe as well. We can see it in recent elections in Finland, where like a far-right party like Finns had its part as in a coalition government, and that party is also linked to a racism scandal, by the way. And and these kind of far-right parties are becoming more frequent, and there are fears that elections in France later on, etc., so they could even produce more of such outcomes. But what we see in general, I'd like to point out a bit to the role of disinformation in polarizing societies, and especially in election campaigns in countries like Poland. And as rightly mentioned by Stephen, it is a big problem as well in Europe, the foreign influence and Russian disinformation campaigns. This could be felt especially in Poland. For instance, fake messages were circulating saying that the ruling party, Law and Justice, the former ruling party, would offer free pension to people, like free funerals to pensioners, and these kind of fake news were really circulating. Because Poland is a more anti-Russian country, like especially right now with the Ukraine war, we could say, the disinformation was more to divide the society on vulnerabilities, such as, so there was a more anti-EU rhetoric or anti-immigration rhetoric, but there were also like a lot of disinformation going on about not my war, for instance, like to basically make Russian interests first in Polish elections. So these kind of things are obviously worrying for democracies in Europe. And we could see European Commissioner Jourova complaining about, even like warning about mass manipulation campaigns even before the European elections this year. And Russia obviously has a big part to play in this with troll networks, especially, and right now, I mean, the AI becoming more important in these kind of disinformation campaigns with persona bots or deep fakes. And right now, other platforms being used like Telegram or TikTok, which are less regulated, so to say. We could see similar trends in Slovakia in the recent elections there. There was a big pro-Russian propaganda, especially a lot of anti-immigration rhetoric and lies about Ukraine war. There was, there was a lot of Fico, the president who got elected, is a populist, and he's a pro-Russian populist, and he used a lot of Putin rhetoric to basically twist the facts about Russia-Ukraine war. So he was pretending that the war was started in 2014 by, I quote, Ukrainian Nazis, and saying that they were like basically, the Donbass and Luhansk regions, they were not historically Ukrainian. And this kind of false information was going on and like repeated by the right now Prime Minister of Slovakia. So these are really dangerous trends, as you can see in Hungary as well. And even the Slovak National Party, Andrej Danko, was was referring to similar claims that the occupied territories were not historically Ukrainian, etc. And right now, the Slovak president, who got recently elected, Fico, is saying that he's going to stop military aid to Ukraine, and he wants to basically negotiate a peace deal. Same rhetoric as Trump, I would say, because like a peace deal is obviously not to the best interest of Ukraine or neither of the European countries themselves, and it would probably not please Ukrainian people who are fighting for democracy. They wouldn't be able, like they wouldn't be willing to give up any territories for the sake of a like hasty peace deal like that, which is right now kind of talked in a country like Slovakia, which used to be the strongest ally of Ukraine in the beginning of the war, and they used to be very open to refugees, etc. So we can see big shifts, and this is partly due to Russian influence and propaganda, I would say. And right now, like people in countries like Slovakia, they are losing trust in politicians. And 51 of them, actually, like more than half of them right now, believe that Ukraine was the reason for the Russian invasion. So these kind of false information is unfortunately everywhere. And we could also see it in Greek elections, in the recent Greek elections themselves. And they had actually employed professional disinformation teams, which were paid like to create fake profiles. That was called Team Jorge. They were based in Israel. So that was a big scandal. And in a country like Greece, for instance, trust in media is very low. The corruption perception is very high. So it is dangerous to play with such conspiracy theories. But we can see that like parties like Golden Dawn, like far-right parties are using these conspiracy theories, and they have absurd claims, like they're talking badly about immigrants or immigration rights, children's rights. So there is a very negative rhetoric, I would say, especially in elections campaigns in Europe. But right now, the newly elected Prime Minister Mitsotakis himself, he also used fake videos, it seems, to which is out of context, etc., to saying that like the train accident, for instance, was exploited by the relatives of the victims in lawsuits. Or he also claimed that in his term, temporary workers did not increase, which were false claims. So we can use that. A lot of leaders don't actually hesitate to lie in their election campaigns, and that's kind of has a green light. And this is very worrying, especially like foreign influence has a big role to play in all these elections campaigns here. And actually, there's also this also belief that Russia and China usually test the disinformation operations they have on smaller countries. So we can see these election campaigns as a pre-preparation for the US elections. So I wouldn't be surprised to see similar disinformation campaigns in the upcoming US elections as well. So if you have, for the time being, that's...
Eli, I want to get back to you on that point, but Peter has joined us.
Thank you, Dave.
Peter, by the way, if there's anything you want to know about defense, military readiness, military deterrence, nuclear weapons, arms control, you got it.
And we also have another one Zoom also, Dina online already.
He's online?
Yeah, she's already joined.
I want to thank the people that organized this, and my dear friend, Dr. Blank, is the person I usually introduce to speak at my events. So I feel privileged to come and speak right after him. He is, I think, the nation's premier expert on Russian strategy and Russian history, and certainly with our friend Mark Schneider about what they're doing with their nuclear stuff. back in 1991, I was hosting a breakfast here with Senator Sam Nunn, one of about 1,500 seminars that I've done since 1981. And I said, the Cold War is over, supposedly. It's the end of history. I don't believe it, and I don't think you do either, Senator. And I said, should I continue to talk about what I call the brothers mayhem? North Korea, Iran, China, and Russia. And all during the 1990s, I had Dr. Blank, among others, people from the agency, CIA, talk about these four countries are going to be united against us. It's just a matter of time for Russia to recover. And Senator Nunn said, yes, continue your seminars, and I'll continue speaking as well, because the Cold War is over, but history is not. What's the common denominator between the violence we see in the world, whether the Middle East or Ukraine or in the Western Pacific, and what you see going on? Let's just take America. Just what's going on in our random violence on our streets. The 624 violent riots in the year 2020 that involved arson, destruction of property, assaulting police officers. 35 people died. And Victor Davis Hanson says $2.5 billion worth of damages. The key is you have to get on the list of the oppressed. Take North Korea. Everything they say, America's hostile policy made me do it. It's like when you were a child and your mother caught you with your hands in the cookie jar. What did you say? Well, it's convenient if you had a brother or sister. Tommy made me do it. This is the same thing with respect to, you have children on TikTok today reading Osama bin Laden's letter to America, explaining why he attacked us on 9/11. And Osama bin Laden was said, you made me do it because you allied yourself with the apostate Muslims, the Saudi royal family. And it is the same thing. Iran, for years since they came into power in '79, have said that what they call the great arrogance, which is what they call the United States. How dare you set the rules? Well, the rules were not just set by the United States, they were set by the winning powers at the end of World War II, without which we would descend back into what we had between World War I and World War II, was 94 million people dead, mainly on the European and Asian areas because of the wars. And then, of course, Russia is always aggrieved. As Dr. Blank has pointed out, they are always of the view that everybody around them or near them or wherever we are hostile to them and want to take them down. And so they justify their murder and kidnapping of children, bombing hospitals and schools. Russia, Iran, North Korea, China are exactly the same. Look at China. Here's a country that harvests the organs of the fallen gone and sells them internationally in a multi-billion-dollar business. This is a country that steals. When I did a seminar with the head of the National Security Agency in January 2009, was just after the inauguration of President Obama, I asked Jim Alexander, I said, he had note cards. He was talking about the theft of intellectual property from China. He said it's $600 billion a year. A year. Who was my audience? I had 44 chief executives and presidents or senior vice presidents of the largest 41 aerospace companies in America. You could see their faces turn white as he said that over a dinner. They didn't even know it, that they were being, that this amount of money was being stolen. That's the seed corn of productivity, which raises your salaries when you're working for a company. China was stealing that. And that's what they were doing, was stealing income and salary from Americans by the millions to the tune, and they're still doing it. There's no, they want an international order that allows them to do that. And then you saw a long article was in the Wall Street Journal about they are producing fentanyl in China, not by the triads in some cave somewhere, but in big factories. And the fentanyl is then shipped by airplane or ship to Mexico, where the Mexican government, wink, wink, at the cartels that get the fentanyl and then put it on the drugs and bring it here to America. And how many Americans died of opiate addiction in overdoses last year, 109,000. Every year, more Americans die from drug abuse supplied by the Chinese and the Mexican cartels than the American soldiers that died in the entire Korean and Vietnamese wars combined. So every year we're doing another Vietnam and another Korea war, every year. And you ask yourself, do you want an international order that says that's okay? Because that's what, when Iran says we're the great arrogance, when Russia campaigns against the unipolar world, where China says that what we do inside China is our business, and there can't be he goes after the United Nations. And these banana heads give him a standing ovation in San Francisco. I've always said that these 4 countries are criminal organizations that masquerade as countries. They get diplomatic immunity, they go to the UN, they got flags, and they got palaces and all the rest of it, but they're criminal organizations. The IRGC in Iran, that's what they are. The fact that the thing is, 2 of them are major oil producers, and one is the biggest oil consumer. And what are they doing? I think it is basically 11 days, they're building a 300 megawatt coal-fired plant. Greenhouse gases are 52 billion tons of greenhouse gases a year are emitted in the world. We emit 5. We're down from 6. Europe emits 5. They're down from 6. China. India pre-COVID was 3 billion tons. It's pretty amazing how little energy they use at 1.4 billion people, going to 1.7 to 1.8 billion people. But India now is around about 5. So India and China together, particularly, they're the 2 biggest coal producers in the world. China has planned and in construction, under construction, enough coal-fired plants to equal all the coal-fired plants in the United States of America. Currently under construction, and we had this lunacy out in California where the president and the head of China says, oh yeah, we're committed to doing something about global warming. Really? You're going to go from 18 billion tons of greenhouse gases, my estimate is at least 30. How are you going to go to 30 and India is going to similarly go that? Because India is a country that has energy poverty. They can't stay that way and take care of the people. They have got to, it's either gas or coal or nuclear or some combination of the 3. There's no way you can reduce greenhouse gases from 53 billion tons to the required 25 billion tons to stop supposedly the temperature increases. Although it is all bogus, don't get me wrong, it is the biggest fairy tale in the history of the world. I know. I worked at the UN Environment Program when I was in college, graduate school and law school at Columbia University. My boss was Maurice Strong. Maurice Strong was former head of Petro-Canada, largest petroleum company in Canada. He became head of the United Nations Environment Program. He started the International Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, and he wanted to make UNEP the central fulcrum in the United Nations to control the world's economies. Then he went to work for Kofi Annan for his Millennium Project. He started the IPCC, and this idea, combined with the concern about global warming, it is to control the economies of the world and the energy production. And God love him, he's passed on. But Maurice was convinced that this was a way with Klaus Fuchs and the World Economic Forum to completely control your lives. When California State is saying to you, the utility can go into your home by electronics and find out that you're using an appliance that's going to use too much energy, we're going to shut it off. You know who stopped it? The environmental left in California said that's an invasion of your privacy. And they joined with the right-wingers who said this is crazy and stopped it. But Newsom wants to do that. You have a gizmo in your car, I don't know if you know this, that tells EPA how many miles you've driven. You're going to have soon, you're going to get a quota. It's called your greenhouse gas quota. You can't produce more than X number of greenhouse gases. There are 18 states in America that have 3 pledges. No internal combustion engines, by 2035. No production of meat, no cows, and no dairy. Why? Greenhouse gases. For the animals, this is really a riot. As someone who worked at the UN and did a lot of development work, Bill Gates wants us to eat veggie burgers. He's buying up all this agricultural land so they can make it in a lab and give us this crap. And they can sell it to Bangladesh and the Sudan, Mexico, and the United States, and we don't have to change a thing. Be worldwide supermarket. But my problem is, if you don't have draft animals, what don't you have in the third world? Horsepower. They don't have tractors in a lot of the third world. So which of the 3.5 billion people in the world are you going to decide to die? Because they will not be able to plow the land and raise the food that feeds them, because most food in the world is grown locally. It doesn't go in international commerce. The big thing in international commerce is grain, wheat, which is why Ukraine is such a problem, because the Russians have deliberately interdicted the grain shipments out of the Black Sea in order to cause hunger around the world, to get people to not help Ukraine. That is, there's no international system of rules that you want to live under that will say, yes, Mr. Putin, you can do that. But he rants and raves about the unipolar world, and he wants his own rules. No, I don't want these criminals. It's like the mafia complaining about their laws against prostitution and selling drugs and loan sharking. And wouldn't it be nice if all those laws just went away so the mafia could do their enterprises above board and no one would complain? That's what Putin, Xi Jinping, Fat Boy Kim #3, as the Chinese call the North Korean dictator, and the mullahs in Iran, that's what they want. They want our sanctioned, yes, you can act as a criminal enterprise and no one's going to say anything. And if you look in this country, when you see people going up to a cop car and shooting into it at point blank range, and you see someone holding up an Israeli flag in San Francisco or Los Angeles, you know, and some guy, a professor at a local university, comes up with a metal pole and whacks him over the head, and he's been arrested now for involuntary manslaughter. That's civilization breaking down, and as it's broken down internationally and broken down nationally, there's one other thing. The biggest thing, and Steve understands this, the whole point of, you've heard of escalate to win. I'm going to threaten the use of nuclear weapons in a conventional conflict in order to get you to back down and simply not join the fight. That is the ultimate end of civilization, because when you and I have always talked about deterrence, and I work for the National Institute of Deterrence Study, deterrence in your mind is, I'm going to stop bad guys from doing bad things to good people. They also do bad things to their own people, but those people aren't bad. They have no control over what goes on. What Putin has done, and Xi Jinping and North Korea and Iran is, and the Commission on the Strategic Posture of the United States, that just came out with a report in October. 6 Democrats, 6 Republicans, unanimous, said the current use of nuclear weapons is the most serious threat we now face in the nuclear business. This is what escalate to win is. They flipped the chart. Instead of using deterrence to stop aggression, they want to use nuclear weapons to commit aggression and get away with it by forcing us to stand down. Okay? That's what Osama bin Laden did with respect to 9/11. It was to get us to stand down in the Middle East, because he said, I'll come do it again. That's the same thing of what happened in Cobra Towers, the embassies in Africa, the World Trade Center bombing in 1993 was a message just to get us to stand down. That's the international order they want, which is we stay out and they commit whatever crimes they want. Because all those criminal acts I've talked about, all those terror acts, were totally criminal. They're against every standard of civilization, and yet we have these people denigrating and trashing Western civilization, without which we would be back in Nazi Germany types, would be worldwide. And as someone whose family, grandparents fled Nazi Germany and got the hell, got out the day Hitler came to power, my grandfather had the brains to know that if he comes to power, I've made arrangements to get out of here. Okay? And that's what we're facing in Ukraine and what is going on with Hamas and Israel. And what's going on with China, wherever they go, it's just the same, exact same thing in all three areas. It's trashing civilization, what the professor called defining deviancy down. We're now defining civilization to the point where it doesn't even exist. And these China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, this is seriously talked about and written about in the New York Times as if they have an international order we should really pay attention to and thoughtful that they're criminal organizations, and that's what they are and have been since they're founded.
Before we get to a point where we have to stop, Dina, are you with us?
Yes.
Yes, Dina,
Oh, sorry.
Oh. Hello.
hi,
Hi, everyone. Sorry, do you hear me?
nice, yes, we hear you. You're from
Okay.
Kazakhstan, right?
Oh, yes, it's Kazakhstan. It's 3:28 a.m. in here. So,
All right,
but
for those
thank you
of
so
you
much.
who don't know, speaking of China and Russia, this is a country that borders both. And
Oh, yeah.
so, why don't you give us what the world looks like from where you are?
Well, actually, I was supposed to talk about the elections, but if you want to talk about like Kazakhstan's position right now, I can talk about it as well. Like, of course, like I mean, I understand what foreign media is saying, that like Kazakhstan is trying to counterbalance the Russian influence in Central Asia, blah blah blah, and fostering sovereignty, independence, and democratic values within the region. However, we should not forget that like 80% of our oil that constitutes about like 50% of our GDP is transported via the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, and it traverses Russian territory, like it goes through Novosibirsk. And consequently, like if Russia decides to shut down this pipeline, and it happened like 4 times in 2022, under questionable like technical pretext, Kazakhstan would face significant economic repercussions, and we had them in 2022. Of course, like Kazakhstan, like right now, they are like negotiating with Azerbaijan, like and talking about this middle corridor via Baku, Tbilisi, Ceyhan pipeline. Right, I mean it's Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, and then to Turkey. However, the annual projections amount to mere like 1.5 million tons, and if we compare to 54 million tons transported via the CPC that goes through Russia, we understand that, like, of course, strategically, this Caspian Pipeline Consortium is more important to us. And right now, Kazakhstan plans to increase oil exports this year to 83 million tons. So that's why Kazakhstan sees CPC as the primary driver of our economy. So in addition to these oil dependencies, also like Russia was, I mean, like I don't really know like right now, but it was the source of 85% of our imported arms and supplies. And also it supplied like 40% of our food and clothing needs. For instance, in the spring of 2022, there was like unilateral halt to Russian sugar imports. Like, of course, it's clearly violated Eurasian Economic Union agreement with Russia, but it triggered a sugar crisis in Kazakhstan. So if before like 2014, we imported sugar from Eastern Europe mostly, like in other different countries, so it was diversified. After 2014, we started importing sugar from Russia exclusively, and other goods as well. Also, like right now, our agricultural sector is under threat from Russia's encroachment, because they are like expanding and like our traditional wheat markets in Central Asia and Afghanistan. They have pushed for tariff unification through this Eurasian Economic Union. And this policy and this bill was actually ratified by our parliament this year. So it means that by 2025, our agricultural sector would lose our primary markets, because like they're gonna transport their wheats to Central Asia, like especially Uzbekistan and Afghanistan. with low prices, and we cannot compete with these prices because Russia has lots of wheat and we don't. Also, what else, when we're talking about this dependency, because why am I talking about this? Because everyone is oh, Kazakhstan is fighting, blah blah blah, and they're talking about how Tokayev says something to Putin. However, if we take a look at the economic, at the figures, we can see how dependent we are on Russia. Also, we I don't know what else to add, because I thought that I would be talking about the elections. However, if we're talking about our view, from Kazakhstan, what's going on with Russia and China, so this is basically it, right? And also, of course, the present issue right now that we all discuss here in Kazakhstan is regulation of customs duties. Since we are in this Eurasian Customs Union, Kazakhstan pays 85% to Russia and about 45% to Belarus. So we how they it is still unclear how they calculated this regulations on customs duties, because if before the significant transit it was through Russian territory. However, right now it's not, and we still continue paying 85% to Russia, in customs duties, and 5% to Belarus, which is crazy. So yes, right now I understand that we are deeply dependent on Russia, and Russian markets, they invading our market. And maybe you heard that ArcelorMittal, they left our market, and right now there are the rumor has it that Russian companies like Severstal is going to take over. So as we can see, Russian Kazakhstani dependence on Russia just increases month by month, and what we see in American media, in European media, it's not true if we talk about figures and numbers and economic dependence of Kazakhstan on Russia.
Well, thank you for the briefing. I hate to cut this short, but I'm going to get skinned if I don't. So we were going to have more panels, but I'm kind of obligated at this point to say it's time to move on to the next panel. I hope you all learned something from our panelists. I'm leaving today knowing things that I did not know when I got here.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much for your moderating. Thank you for your participation. And so we'll try to catch up time. And our next panel, I would invite our moderator, Liv Larson. And I will have to make short description on about the speakers, and also invite speakers. This is Kelly Tain. This is Tadeusz Walls, Ben Evans, and Steve Moore. Please join the discussion. We won't gonna make any breaks. Just not to lose time. We will have networking time a bit later after the panels. So I will introduce the Lars. He's political strategist and film production specialist. He has developed strategy and advertising for political candidates and issue campaigns across the country. His past clients include key politicians from the Republican Party, like Patrick McHenry, current chair of the House Financial Service Committee in the Congress, and John McCarthy. Sorry if I wrong pronounce the name. Correct me. Please correct me.
Members of Congress.
Former United States Secretary of the Army. And so I also want to introduce speakers, or
Well, I was gonna ask if, usually people that know themselves faster, people up here, so if you wanted to start, Patty?
Good afternoon, my name is Thaddeus Walls, I am
Where should I sit? Thank you. All the way. Oh, there's, okay, thank you.
We'll let you sit anywhere you want.
Yeah, from you can. And do the screen. I know that I can.
and we also have one more speaker who joined us last time. So she will introduce herself, and I will ask you, but it will be a proper moment.
My name is Thaddeus Walls, I am a political consultant and organizer.
Let's try to use microphone.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
No.
My name is Thaddeus Walls. I am a political consultant and organizer. I work with advocacy groups and first-time candidates around field fundraising and various items. And most recently, was helping clients with Philadelphia's most recent municipal cycle.
That is doing very good.
Hello, my name is Kelly Ting. I'm a political consultant. I work all over the United States. I specialize, I guess, in swing districts. I do a lot of work in North Carolina and Pennsylvania. I've worked on every single type of election except for presidential.
Hi, my name is Ben Evans. I work professionally at GW, George Washington University, as a recruiter for the Graduate School of Political Management, but I'm kind of coming to this panel as a student in that program that I'm also a recruiter for. So I have been taking classes for the last 2 years and will be graduating this May. And I just found out that Kelly is also an alum from that program, so I'm in good company up here. However, I do definitely consider myself a little bit of a novice compared to some of the other experts here on the field. So I'm just happy to be a part of this, and thanks.
All that means is you haven't lost any reason to do that.
Hey, I'm Stephen Moore. I am, I've been around the block a couple of times. I've done political work in about a dozen different countries. And I was a chief of staff to a member of House leadership for a while and was heavily involved in the Republican wave with the NRCC in 2010. And currently, I call Kyiv home. And I went to Ukraine on day 5 of the war and started an NGO that has gotten about a couple of $1 million worth of humanitarian aid to the front. It's done a lot of work helping out the Ukrainian military. They, despite what you might hear, they're not very well funded, so they need body armor, helmets, kind of all the basic stuff. We help them with that. And what I found lately that is most important that I can do to help Ukraine and keep World War III from breaking out earlier is to communicate with my former colleagues on Capitol Hill. So I'm trying to get fact-based, data-driven information. I've been to the front like 12 times, so I'm trying to get that information to policymakers in DC and to opinion leaders around America.
Great. And I guess for our Skype person who is on with us, can you introduce yourself?
No, we lost him already.
Oh.
Just he's from Poland. It's already night while we were singing.
There we go. Well, it's also for our people that are on Zoom listening, who maybe are not that familiar with American politics. I'm just going to take a shot in the dark here and kind of label some of our panelists here. That is use the interesting word political consultant and organizer. I would say you're probably a Democrat.
Yes.
Yes. There we are. Just for organizer is a key word to you can pick up as you go here and there on American politics. And it's Kelly, I'm sorry. Kelly, I'm guessing is probably more of a conservative Republican on our panel here today? Yes. Okay, we also have the academic who is in a world of their own. So the only person that's up here that's probably legitimate is Steve. He's doing some, God's work over in Ukraine. So, thank you for him. Well, let's get started. The first question that I have here is, and we'll open it up to, we'll go with Stephen on the end down there, and then we'll work our way down towards me again. In your opinion, what are the challenges in the upcoming election cycle in the United States?
Wow, where do I start? Yeah, I don't want to take up the entire panel. So here's what we've got. We've got two candidates, both of whom nobody in America wants to run again. If you look at the polling, both of them don't have a majority of people thinking they should run again. They're both actually about in the 20s and 30s. And nobody who's running for president is right side up on the favorables. So except for Nikki Haley is 35. Everybody has higher negatives than they have positives. So that's a really interesting environment to be in. And so the heater issues are going to be Ukraine, Israel. Foreign policy is going to make a real difference in this election. It's interesting. We did some polling. My NGO, the Ukraine Freedom Project, did some polling of Republican primary voters. And we looked to see if people would support the economic aspect of aid to Ukraine, aid to Israel, that, we are creating manufacturing jobs. Nobody cares. So, the inflation is a huge problem. Jobs are still there. And so, until that becomes a reality, people, so the economy is actually, despite inflation, that's going to be the problem. That's going to be, but it's not jobs. So the interesting thing I see is that Nikki Haley has more money than DeSantis, and she's on her way up, and DeSantis is on his way down. So she's got something like 11 million bucks she can use in the primary. He only has like 5. So I think that Nikki Haley will become the opposition to Trump. Who is going to be the last person standing against Trump? I think it's Nikki Haley. And I think she's got a good shot. So what I like from, she is campaigning on being aggressive against Russia and Hamas, and it's working. So that's what I like.
Great. And Ben, same question to you. What do you see as the major hurdles in this upcoming election cycle in the United States?
If we are gearing up for a showdown that we saw in 2020, I think it's going to be really difficult to give reasons, especially young people, reasons to actually get out and go to the polls. Obviously, there was a huge turnout in 2020, and that was a very unique year with the pandemic and mail-in ballots and things like that. But I don't know if people will be as enthusiastic about going out and supporting and turning out in the same way. What I do find interesting is the other ballot initiatives or other issues that tend to be on the ballot in local elections that seem to be giving districts more turnout. For example, since we've seen the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we've had a number of different states who are now taking action to legally keep abortion access legal. And we also, I think, just saw this last week, Ohio recently legalized the recreational use of marijuana. I think that some of these other issues are going to maybe be more exciting for younger voters. And I think that that's important to pay attention to, especially if the presidential election is just going to be another rerun, I guess.
Okay, and Kelly, your position on this upcoming election cycle?
So I think it's going to be very interesting, obviously, but I also think, because we are so polarized, how do you get the information out? How do you sway voters? Because, we want to get as much voter turnout as possible. Well, if we don't have a lot of enthusiasm because we are dealing with a repeat of, Biden and Trump, how do you actually, make the voting population enthusiastic about this election cycle? And also with Trump, how is Trump going to affect, if he is the nominee, how is he going to affect the election turnout? How is he going to affect the down ballot? And how is he going to affect different voting blocks, like with unaffiliated women, Republican women? I think that those are going to be some challenges. And if by some, circumstance he is not, and let's say Nikki Haley is, how is that going to affect, people who came into like the Republican Party under Trump? Are they going to still engage, or are they going to go away? So I think that's some of the things that are going to be challenging. I also think our messaging on abortion is going to be critical, since the Dobbs decision. From my side, it has not gone well, and I think we have a messaging problem that needs to be addressed. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and how we address, inflation and with border control, and what's going on in Ukraine, in Israel, and how those voting blocks are going to vote. So I think those are some of the challenges.
That is.
Some challenges, for example, like the Biden administration has to take from policy speed to translating to everyday Americans how this administration not only has helped the country, but also, are you better off and do you still want stability? And all too often there's what can be delivered, and then the show that is Congress. So a lot of people don't care for the compromises or the intricacies of governing. And then, of course, in America, even though we have two major parties, most people don't identify with either or. Democrats need a crisis, Republicans have to care about something. And plus, not only with foreign policy going on, but also with every re-election, you always have these articles always either doubting or trying to find something to have an issue with the administration, like, oh my God, polling this, or they're not going to get elected that. But we'll see the closer we get into 24. And now we have progressives potentially getting primaried by AIPAC funding. So right now, everyone has to pick what hill they're willing to die on and what they'll be willing to compromise on. Easier said than done.
How do you think that goes? What do you think? Who wins, AIPAC or the progressives?
Money talks, and we all know what walks.
All right.
Well, thank you for all your opinions. You're all wrong. We could probably live up to that because, everyone up here has made observations in the past, I'm sure, that they would not like to repeat after the elections and the primaries came. We'll move on real quick. And again, we'll keep our timing down as was on this. What methods do you believe will be the most effective in the upcoming election in the United States? In your opinion, which method and messaging are most effective in both the Democratic and the Republican Party? And Thaddeus, where do you see in amongst the Democratic Party, what tool out there, what method of campaigning is the most effective?
As someone who started their career in field, of course, I'm always going to say door-to-door conversations, but also having people to validate and carry different campaign messages. It's a different ballgame, a commercial delivering a message versus someone you trust, someone you know. And then also that's one of the other reasons why there's been more investment in year-round organizing, because a lot of the feedback that's been coming to campaigns in different groups to the point where both sides really aren't going to take no one for granted. Like, I really expect a lot of Republicans to make more inroads with non-white voters, only because of how people are vilifying a lot of culture issues.
Great. I'd like to also probably comment on that is, a lot of times we in the United States, as opposed to people in other countries, a large part of campaigning here is done through imagery, whether it's direct mail, whether it's social media, and also whether it's, the big spends that come on TV. And, we often see a doctor talking about abortion. We'll see somebody who was a victim of a crime talking about, the need for law and order. So in those cases, you're trying to throw a bigger net to put forward a face that people can identify with.
I recognize that the hurt that that person is going through. My next door neighbor lost somebody to a violent crime, or I believe the same way the doctor does. This is an issue that should be between a patient, a woman, and her doctor. So, there's those big things, but I do agree on this part, and this is my editorialization. I take into account the moderator. So I do think door-to-door knocking, being out there, being seen is a great way to do it. But when you got 150,000 doors to knock on, it's a little bit difficult. But you need people out there doing it. Yeah, what would you say is the most influential tool out there?
So I think for down ballot races, I definitely think like canvassing, door knocking, because that's the best way to get your message out. But I think also with presidential, gubernatorial, the most that I've seen, I think social media ads really gain a lot of people's attention. I think that is, because everyone's on their phone or maybe texting to get your message. I think it's the quickest way and the most effective way in this 2-second time frame that we have to grab people's attention. So.
I'll just get on that again. So I'll just keep the conversation going. I'll throw this to Ben on this part. You mentioned social media. I just recently wrote an article and a lot of people here regarding the Russian position. My article was, is social media the rope that we're selling the communists and the Russians in which we will hang our own democracy? And from that position, we've seen a lot of basically attacks on our democracy from Russia, from China, from Iran, in the way of false social media, which has given rise to what I classify as the angry voter, and built up they and they're against us. That's the enemy, which we point to somebody of a different party, a different philosophy. So Ben, I'll throw this to you. Is social media still reliable in the upcoming elections? And is it something that you can use to sell an opposition on go with me, I have the better ideas, or is it now solely basically ginning up, as we say, your base?
I mean, I think that social media is imperative no matter what, but I do think that it presents many challenges. I'm in a crisis management class right now, and we're talking about the use of social media. It's impossible in a crisis to respond to every single voice that has an opinion on what's going on. But I think far too often we allow these reverberation chambers to just reinforce people's ideas and sometimes half-truths, myth-truths. But social media is an incredibly useful platform to speak directly to your constituents and your supporters. And by doing that and engaging in that on social media, you actually help them feel valuable to your campaign, which I think is one of the ways that one of the really effective strategies you can grow your campaign. Just to kind of get back to your original question, though, I wanted to mention that I think that Americans are getting far too tired of the amount of apocalyptic literature that they're hearing in campaign emails and calls and ads. I know that it's easier to be against someone than for something, and it's easier to stoke fear than it is hope. But we need more candidates who are willing to kind of go to the mat for hope. I don't know. We need something to believe in instead of just the other side's bad.
But that goes all those emails I get from Kelly Lake about the end of the world coming unless I send her $25. Stephen,
I have data that says the end of the world is coming. I live in a war zone, man.
You and I, we've exchanged, discussions on social media. And so I'd like to,
I haven't seen you in years, but I see you a lot of social
media. The idea though is, we've also presented, we have the echo chamber and people are presenting what they consider to be true facts and everything else. Can you give us a little example? How can you use social media to push back against the false narrative?
Yeah, great question. And something I deal with every day because what I'm doing is I'm trying to push back on a lot of the false narratives that are created about Ukraine. So Zelensky is banning the Christian faith from Ukraine, right? Does everyone agree with that? Yeah, okay. It's not true. It's quite the opposite true. The Russians are persecuting Protestant Christians at a great rate. Zelensky is canceling the elections. Not true. He is. It is in their constitution that during a time of war they can't have elections. That predates Zelensky. So how do I get past that? What I've been doing is I've been pinpointing my communication and targeting people with the truth who I don't have the money to change the opinions of the 10 million people that tune in to Tucker Carlson when he comes on Twitter. What I do have is I have the relationships on Capitol Hill and the relationships with opinion leaders where I can go and give them the truth in digestible pieces. Now, in terms of social media, if you haven't received a connection request from me on LinkedIn yet, you will. And so I find that very valuable. LinkedIn is working for me, and I get a lot of people who are disproportionately educated, disproportionately politically active, who listen to my stuff. And so I started taking LinkedIn very seriously. I have not made Twitter work for me. Instagram works, but it has a limited audience, and because it's visual, I really like that about Instagram. The other thing that I found is I have a minute 15-second video of children from a small village in Ukraine who talk about being shelled by the Russians and tanks and their grandparents covered in blood and all this sort of thing. And I sit here and I show it to people, and it's on my Instagram, but I show it to people, and they only have a 45-second attention span. So after 45 seconds of these kids telling these heart-rending, horrible stories, the people that I talk to start talking to me, And so I find that fascinating. I don't think you can do anything. 45 seconds is a lot of time these days.
Okay, and I'm going to go off script here a little bit, and I'm going to throw some questions at their consulting panel up here. You just mentioned 45 seconds is an eternity. In politics, it is. Usually right now, you have 15 seconds to 30 seconds, whether you're doing what we call a pre-roll ad on YouTube. Generally, those are 15 seconds. Kids see them all the time because they're watching Mr. Beast or something like that on YouTube, and these things come on. Thaddeus, 30 seconds. What do you think is the issue, and how would you explain it to people that is going to turn the election for your particular party or candidate? 30 seconds.
The economy.
There we are. And Kelly.
I would say the economy also.
Oh, that, okay, well, I'm going to come back to you, Ted. If it's the economy, what about the economy? And you got 20 seconds this time.
It's so stupid, it has to make sense to the average person.
You're good, Kelly? You got 20 seconds.
Okay, ask yourself if you were better off during Biden or during Trump.
In Los Angeles, these two just spent about $3.5 million for their candidates. Ben, you got 30 seconds. Give me your take.
Yeah, I think that the biggest issue at the top of people's minds is public safety. I think that there's a real big rise in violence in communities happening. Obviously, police are kind of getting targeted now. It's really scary, and so doing something that's going to calm people's fears is probably what they need right now.
Steve, if you had 30 seconds to do an explanation video on issues, anything, either on the need for supporting. I'll throw it to you. The need for supporting the Ukrainian fight. How do you do it in 30 seconds?
America has a lot of problems, but if we don't fight the Russians in Ukraine, and right now we have people who are willing to fight and die for their freedom and for world stability, and all they want is the weapons. And so we are spending about 5% of the annual budget of the U.S. Department of Defense on weapons for Ukraine, and we've degraded Vladimir Putin's warfighting capability by half. This is the best money that has been spent on defense in the history of Russia being our adversary, and not one U.S. soldier has had to die. And if we stop doing that, the problems over there are going to become our problems over here. So we need to do this now.
And that's why you don't do it for the second.
What did I do? How did I
You
do?
did 35.
Okay.
There, but we also need a disclaimer out.
So I think, can I amp it up, you know, like,
Yeah, the Joe is using paper about it.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, we'll go back, and there was Thaddeus, I think you were the one who said, money talks. In American politics, for anybody who is on our Zoom and isn't familiar with it, we have on federal races, those for representing a United States member of Congress, U.S. Senator, President of the United States, we have federal limits on how much each of those people can take from each citizen. We also have what we call political action committees, which some of these have unlimited amount of money they can take and don't have to disclose where they got it from. So what we're looking at here is we usually have people that have 2 stacks of money. Now the PAC can't tell candidate A what they're doing with their money, wink, wink. But if you look at what they're doing with it on the campaign side, you can figure out the strategy they're using and how to use your money best to. Now the PAC can't tell candidate A what they're doing with their money, wink, wink. But if you look at what they're doing with it on the campaign side, you can figure out the strategy they're using and how to use your money best to. So what we're looking at here is we have several presidential races and candidates who are running money that they're getting in for the primaries. And they also have, though, multi-million-dollar PAC that have taken in money from people who've written a $2 million check, a $3 million check. Somebody wanted to do. How will PACs affect this?
Hypothetically speaking, in my opinion, should Trump become the Republican nominee, I am of the belief the progressive floodgates will reopen. Because I think people were putting their points to the side just in case. So a lot of things that didn't or couldn't get funded during the midterm cycle, the coins will be found. But also the uncoordinated coordination allows different entities to take advantage of certain communications that the candidate's campaign won't say these things, but the PAC or the independent expenditure, oh, definitely, they'll take better, harder, maybe nastier swings, maybe deeper dives, but it depends on how not only like the dark money people, but also the groups themselves, because each group just has different pockets of candidates or groups where the understanding is if you do or support X, Y, Z, we'll give you whatever with the assumption of what you will support down the line.
And I'll just throw in, on the issues, and you went over this a little bit, but I just shellacking the 3 races in Virginia, primarily because the Democrats did a great job of what I call political jujitsu. They flipped the fight that Youngkin had won and had to get himself elected back in 2021, which was the angry parent who pushed him into office by being angry about COVID lockdowns and what was going on in school. The Democrats came back and said, "You want to see angry voters? We'll get angry voters turned out using the abortion issue and the ban that is being by the governor." So what issue do you think will be used out there if you say it's Trump? What issue, or will it be just basically Trump?
I think it really it'll depend on the state. I know definitely in Pennsylvania, abortion helped Josh Shapiro get elected and really wipe the field. So really, wherever that's probably a sizable female population, it's probably most people's best bets to not say nothing too crazy, but that's using too much logic in politics.
Kelly, I've written you a check for $65 million. What are you going to run as your national campaign with that money? What is the issue you're going to push?
The economy.
And what about the economy? Besides, are you better off than you were 4 years ago?
Well, that, inflation, is on the rise. People still can't afford to buy the basic needs. Gas is skyrocketing, where under previous administration, it was $1.98 a gallon. People who are making $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. So if they're living paycheck to paycheck, what are the rest of us doing? That we don't have the path to living the American dream anymore. It's gone. And we need to rebuild that. And the best way to rebuild that is with the Republican candidate, whether it's Trump, Nikki Haley, or whoever, that's our best bet, because no one can afford to live in this economy anymore. You can't save money. You can't, splurge on Christmas or Hanukkah. You're living literally paycheck to paycheck.
And I'm gonna throw, before we go to you, I'm gonna throw out there, like I said, I just had 3 candidates took a shellacking in Virginia. And we took a shellacking in places where we had folks who owned houses, which were over, an average house cost in Great Falls, Virginia is about $3.5 million. Taxes, property taxes have increased over the last 10 years, 30%. They did not turn out to vote on the economy. Is that because they have so much money? I'll tell you what people did turn out to vote on was the abortion issue. So can your economic issue trump a social issue? And I Trump as in the card play, not the candidate. Can it overcome the anger issue that's behind something like abortion?
I think it can. I think because abortion is definitely like a hot issue, and I think that a lot of social issues are, but I think everyone can understand what it's like to check their bank account. Hey, do I have enough money to do this? Or when you're budgeting, like, hey, do I have, am I going to make my budget, or am I going to have to scale back? Can I send my son or daughter to that, the sports camp or anything like that? But I also think that if I think one of the most effective, if you can play both of them, feed off of them, like social issues are important, but there's also another, they're intertwined, and that abortion is a hot topic, and whether you think that women should have the right to choose beyond 15 weeks or not, that's an important issue. But can she afford the abortion, or things like that? You can play those.
There's the old adage of people vote first by their pocketbook,
yeah, and
then by social issues.
Yeah.
We'll just have to see where that falls out over the next couple of months and where we fall. Ben, 65 million sitting in your bank account as a political action. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do with it?
So, man,
and I'm going to throw this curve at you. What are you going to do with it issue-wise, and how are you going to use it on what form of medium? Is it going to be TV, radio, mail, digital, or any of mix of the above?
Okay, this is a lot. All right, let's see if I actually did my homework. So yeah, I think I would focus, since I said public safety with my last answer, I would probably focus on public safety issues, obviously depending on the district. But I think I would probably take the angle of trying to help address some of the underlying economic issues as a way to solve some of the issues with public safety, such as more affordable housing, the cost of healthcare, inflation, obviously. But in terms of just the specific mediums, ways to get it out there, obviously social media, you have to, I feel, nowadays. TV probably, and direct mail. Actually, a lot of new data coming out about direct mail. Millennials do like to get mail, and they open it and they respond to it. So can still be effective.
There we go. Stephen, to you, but I'm only giving you $60 million. So your pack, I know you're used to coming with doing more with less.
I'm the oldest student in the panel, so I get the experience to make it work. So I think you guys are all much nicer people than I am. Because here's what I would do, is that there's a belief among the electorate that Biden is not fit to lead, and it's because of his age, and so whether or not that's true, I would hammer that like, I would just like beat the living heck out of that. I would run TV commercials with every Biden gaffe that he's ever committed. And just pound it into people that the world is unstable. 99% of the Republican primary voters in my poll that I did think the world's an unstable place. And so I think that carries over to swing voters as well. And in this time of instability, President Biden does not have the capacity to lead. And again, this is we can argue about whether that's true, but it seems to be present in the polls right now, and I would just beat the heck out of that.
I can visualize your TV spot. Things are bad. We show Biden.
Yeah.
Do we need somebody who is solid or can we afford somebody and then show the next he's tripping over the sandbag?
Yeah.
So I see your TV.
The commercial. Yeah.
$60 million.
Yeah, man. Commercials write themselves.
So I'm gonna
Leave, I'm
close
sorry, I gotta step out.
Yeah, I was
but
gonna say,
yeah.
go ahead. I was gonna follow it up. I'm gonna take 3 quick questions. These have to be quick. One for each of our 3, since you gotta step out. We'll start with Ben. Anybody have a question? Yes.
I have a question, and
Yes.
I actually happens to be to Ben. I think he's the only one who stated how he'd allocate the 65 million. So would you define the targeting? You had mentioned millennials, for direct mail, but you're gonna have to refine your audience for that spend. Can you come up with how to do that quickly?
Probably not, but I can try. Yeah.
I do it all day, by the way, so.
Yeah, so obviously, now I feel like I just need to think about it a little bit and I can actually give you an answer.
Well, that is the correct answer. I'll wait for the data to come in on the polling, and then we're gonna figure out who's who on the demographics. But if you had polling,
If I,
quick, what would you use? Would you use social media for what age group, mail for what group, and TV targeting what demographic, men, women, whoever you think?
yeah, so TV probably for older. Cable, I think, is more of a luxury of not my generation. Direct mail, probably social media, absolutely for Gen Z and millennials, but probably just focusing on maybe a sweet spot between 18 and 35 for mail.
You're slap on. We in the TV media buying industry, which is huge for politics out here for our people on Zoom. We have what's called fringe prime. It's that time just before the evening news. It's also called buying the Wheel and Jeopardy, because that's where the old folks are watching. Sorry.
It's also where a lot of cheap ads come from.
Well, I don't know. You buy the Wheel.
Cheaper ads.
Yeah,
Cheaper
it's not
ads.
like 60 Minutes, but it still costs a little bit of money. Okay, another question. Yes.
I wanted to ask Kelly, you said that Republicans have like a messaging issue when it comes to abortion. How would you respond to that?
I think, from my experience after the Dobbs decision came out, we ran from it, and the opposition defined us, that, hey, they're going to put moms and women in jail. And that, we don't care, about a woman's right to choose, and it's private. And I would say that's not true. I don't think, we're not gonna put women in jail for having an abortion. We're not going, to demonize them for that. We are trying to protect life at a reasonable stage of pregnancy, because we believe in the right to life. But from my experience, when it comes to issues like this, we have a tendency to get completely awkward thoughts came out from the races that I worked on. I mean, my clients were being yelled at, they froze, they didn't know what to say, so they just didn't want to handle the situation. So I would say that, you have to reach that, you have to hit that head on and say, this is what we believe in. You can't, it's not. And I would also turn it to partial birth abortion and abortion up to, the time that you're giving birth, because those are the ones that I think whether side you're on, people are like, I don't know about that. So.
Thank you.
I do think it's the new third rail. We used to have in this country, reforming Social Security, which is still a topic most people don't want to cover in their elections, is a tough one. But I think the abortion issue is quickly closing in on that as being the third rail. That should stay away from. Last question, anybody? On anything for Thaddeus, anything? Oh, go ahead, Ian.
I wanted to know more about like how you would segment the money. And you said that like abortion would do really well with like female, like largely female districts. What are the other issues that you think would like play well in other areas in the country?
A combination of, first and foremost, I'd spend X amount of money on TikTok with 1835 vote, whatever the highest rated show among women is. I would just beat the drum with all women issues on that front, but really a combination of blended local politics with unfinished like federal business for the most part. But this is assuming people are willing to have the conversation about bread and butter checkbook issues instead of, oh my God, I hate this. Oh my God, I hate that. So really tangible conversations without the buzzwords and culture wars.
Thank you.
TikTok, really? Peter just told us a few minutes ago, TikTok's owned by the Chinese government. You're gonna be selling off all these people's information to them.
The goal is to win, but at least run it through how this can work efficiently. I was thinking that at first, I'm thinking somehow, some way, TikTok just has a certain demographic and a chokehold. I can't explain it. I've never seen nothing like it.
The band's political.
Probably the truth. Just want to close off and thank our panel up here. If everybody could give them a great big hand. With the idea that for our people who are overseas and have seen political, elections here, I'm going to give a little bit of a gloom and doom aspect of it. I think we're going to see just a continued rise of the angry voter, which is churned on and urged on by the angry politician. We have a lot of those. We see them there. I call them the Kardashian Congress members. Matt Gaetz and a few other people. I criticize them mostly because they're members of my own party. But we also have the squad, and they're whatever I can say that's going to get me on TV and anger people is what I'm going to say. So I think we're going to see that big in this upcoming election. Sadly, I think it's going to happen regardless if it's Trump. I think regardless if it is Biden, who kind of strangely, I guess, made the comment today that he thought Newsom could be president of the United States. I don't know if that was a smart comment with the way that things are going for him, but I think either way, we're going to see another round of the angry voter. And it comes down to the people in this room, people that are professionals, to try to keep things on the straight and narrow. Because one thing I learned from a mentor who got me into this business early is you never lie. Your client's reputation is on the line, as is yours. Always tell the truth. And I think everybody up here and in this room believes the same thing. So thank you for taking the time out and be with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our speakers. That was great and right. I will give you a short view about our next schedule, our plans. And we'll have the opportunity to vote a bit. So we'll try to catch up our schedule during short lunch or eat, short meals. We have 25 minutes for eat and for presentation by Ben about George Washington University. Am I right? So you can choose. We first have presentation, then we eat, and then we continue. We have 4 more panels, or we just have some food, and then we have presentation and next panel. Let's vote. Presentation, right now presentation, then we eat, then panels. Yeah, all agree? Yeah. Okay. How long you need? How much time you need for presentation? Just remember, we have 25 minutes generally for presentation and for food. Okay. Okay.
Is it possible to get the slides that I sent you? If not, that's okay. Oh, great.
Well, I'm gonna stand at the podium and just use one of these mics. Well, thanks, everyone. That was really fun to get to be a part of this panel. I want to thank Kateryna and all of this this event here, IGAPA, and all of the other partner organizations as well, really for giving us a platform to kind of come and tell the world about who we are. So we are the Graduate School of Political Management. This is a very unique master's program for professionals interested in getting another degree and really gaining more expertise in the area of politics. So other degrees like political science or public policy, these tend to focus more on the data behind why politics happens the way that it does, or the impacts of a policy. The Graduate School of Political Management is far more interested in helping you understand the applied skills, the strategies, the tactics that you can employ in the several different decision points that you have to make in a campaign to maximize your reach in terms of your messaging, your identifying critical target audiences, and crafting your messaging specifically to those target audiences. So we have a lot of classes that help you really hone in on a lot of these disciplines. But we have three main master's programs, and I'm just going to briefly talk to you about the three that we have. So this next slide, if I don't know who's controlling it, but yeah, so we have the Political Management Master's Program. This is a degree for people who are interested in campaigns, causes, parties, elections, advocacy, and public affairs more broadly. It can be completed in 12 courses and as little as 18 months. And it is designed for the working professional. You don't have to pause your career to earn your degree. In fact, most of our students are working professionals. Several of them are working right up here on Capitol Hill, also in campaigns around Northern Virginia and Maryland. We also have a big online community of people working on state legislatures and other things like that. But we do offer classes 100% online, in person, or a hybrid option of the two. So if you are local, you can kind of mix and match with your schedule. One of the things that I think is a real highlight of this program is that we try to be very bipartisan. You're going to have professors and fellow students in the classroom that you don't agree with. And we hope that you will learn from their perspective and begin to understand the ways in which they think. And hopefully, and further down your career, learn the ways in which you can compromise with them, because as we all know, we need more compromise here in our political system. So go to the next slide, if you don't mind. The next master's program is the Legislative Affairs Master's Program. This is obviously, as the name would suggest, oriented much more towards the federal legislative model. So in this, you'll learn about actually crafting and drafting legislation. You'll learn about managing congressional office. You'll learn all about Congress and its different committees. But you can also take elective classes in specific policy areas like budgetary politics or energy and the environment. So if you want to hone in or become an expert on one specific policy area, you can do that. This program is 11 courses, can be completed in 18 months. And the classes, in-person classes, actually meet right here at the Hall of States, right by the Union Station. So it's very easy if you're working on Capitol Hill to come and take classes in the evening. The last master's program I'll briefly mention is the Strategic Public Relations Program. This is a communications-based PR degree with a politics slant to it. We obviously, the art of communications is kind of what politics is, and every single congressional office or government agency is going to need a spokesperson. So this degree is really to help you refine your communication skills and become a more professional in that. So the next slide, I'm just briefly going to mention, I get really excited to, I think it's just one more. Yes. So I kind of excited to share this. It's a little hard to see. The photos are kind of cut off, but something that's really unique that we offer here in the Graduate School of Political Management is called our Global Perspective Residency courses. And this is basically the graduate school equivalent of a study abroad program. If you're interested in getting outside of the country and figuring out how politics happens in a different part of the world, these are great courses for you to take. One of the photos here in this slide, this is me and my trip to Rio. We were just in Brazil last month in September, and it was just an unbelievable, fantastic experience. The amount of connections and the access that you get through this program is unlike anything else that I had ever imagined and could ever do on my own. We were meeting with state senators, state representatives, senators, ministers of finance, very high-ranking government officials who took time out of their day to just talk to us about how it all works and answer our questions, which is really cool. So I highly recommend you look into that if you're interested in the program. Next slide, please. Just a couple more, and then we'll let you get some food. So we also have a couple of graduate certificate programs. These are standalone degrees that can be earned by themselves or as you're earning a full master's degree. So great options for someone who might not want to commit to a full program, but do want to get an extra certification. We have graduate certificates in community advocacy, digital politics, digital communications, global public relations, and PAC and political management. So please come up to me and talk to me if you want to know a little bit more. The last thing I'll leave you with is that we, next slide, please, at GSP are hosting a professional access roundtable. This is one of the big tenets of our program is we are very interested in helping you build your political network while you're in the program, so that once you graduate with this degree, you can find opportunities. So this is actually an event that's open to the whole public. Anyone who is here tonight who is interested in the program or just wants to kind of give back to their community and help the next generation of government affairs professionals learn the ropes, then this is a great event for you to attend, and I really hope that you will do this. We are going to be sending these slides out to everyone who is attending tonight, so you will have a link to register for the event if you'd like. The next slide is really just my contact information, as well as my colleague Shakiba Shahir. She's the recruiter for the Legislative Affairs and Strategic Public Relations program. I'm the recruiter for political management. Please, please, please come talk to me if you are interested or know anyone who might be interested. As someone who mentioned in the panel, I'm also a student in the program in addition to being a recruiter. And this has changed my life in numerous ways in the last 2 years since I've become a student. It finally feels like I am starting to get the knowledge that I need to have the impact that I've always wanted. So if that sounds interesting to you, I hope you'll consider this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. So we have 15 minutes for short meals and networking, and then we are finally getting our schedule and continue with our 4 more panels. Okay. So we welcome.
I think so, yeah.
So we can get up and off the line.
Yep.
You can go.
Long time.
How was good?
So I was going to ask you, I thought about raising my hand to ask you that question. What is the ways in which you think you would simplify the economy? Obviously, that's a big question, but like, since you said it was such a hard task, where does your background? Yeah, I mean, obviously, it is complex. How would it simplify?
So. Yeah.
I watched. Oh, yes, 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 yes. Geez, what was the partner that's now running it? Joe. Joe. I love Joe. Yes, yes, as a former, that's how it is, but it's good. Just 2 years. When I left, they were just, when I left, they were just opening the expanded upstairs. Right, well, they had an 8, and they, when I was there, breaking through to the other building. I was on 6, but they still had it, they had no. Team on 6, 7 for research, yeah, and then 8 was all the partners, and then now they've ended up in studio. Oh yeah, yeah, it's a great place. I mean, it's top of the food chain on a lot of stuff. I know. Yeah. What do you do? Oh, you teach people.
Are you guys done with the team?
Yeah. Good. I'm glad it was busy. I'm glad you took it off. Kind of started out in yeah. Well, congratulations. I'm glad to meet you. You bet. But we can definitely. Where the congratulations are. No. You have your own integration with politics. However, I didn't realize that you have like a
Hopefully you're accepting it. I've been organizing for 6 years. But I started half a year ago. I didn't know, I did not know that before I went into it. Like, nonprofit, very bad. Yeah, that's very. Yeah. Yeah. No, but that's not all of it. Really nice. Okay.
It's way more better than being on private.
Okay, fair. I'm from DC. I don't know what's good.
Right.
Probably with actually, one of the speakers, my boss, that's how I found out. Yes, nice to meet you.
I do. Very fine.
I know it's such an awkward like.
It wasn't right here last time. Last time it was over there.
Oh, did you present before? Okay. So are you both?
I work for a advocacy firm, so we like help organizations with advocacy. Before I worked in like organizing for years. But now like it's an advocacy firm that's built in a larger strategy firm. So I'm in the advocacy part, but it's interesting. I really like it. I work on national and the last local was a gubernatorial race in 2017 for Virginia. That was my last. But yeah, I was president like I do.
I just started mine after seeing about the different infrastructure in different places. Yeah, so like I don't know what kind of shit I might as well start my own stuff. Now it's a matter of building it out, so this way after seeing how all the parties do it, now it's like okay, build out really make shit work to get it, but like yeah, relationships, but not everyone knows how to win this fight. That was the wild part.
Relationship, like bridging the gap.
Yes.
Data firms, like there's so many data firms right now. That are trying to really get demographic work. The way they played abortion in Virginia, it's like in the moment that my young kid said, that's the problem. The moment my young kid said, by the way, if I win, if you take over the House and Senate, like it will happen. It became the issue, and they won the landslide. So I think data and knowing
Go fast, get some more.
it's really surprised, like Appalachia, I think, has the possibility to become a lot of So having a variety of different campaign approaches, running a national campaign is super important.
It has to be, it has to be.
But I think it's possible, like we have the data, there's already ad segmentation for different states anyway. It's like, it just takes like a lot of power. Thank you. It is, right? It's super exciting.
I'm from California, that I moved to Colorado.
Very cool. Yeah. Yeah.
And also it's interesting hearing, Democrat people have a conversation.
More willing to either vote split ticket or results are gonna like play out in different places. Like people were trying to make it seem like what happened in Virginia happened in Kentucky, and it's like not necessarily.
Yeah.
So like you know, she got reelected, his AG didn't get reelected, and now it's about abortion, but like the witness. So like we can make those full connections instead of go this way here and then keep the status quo in other places, because that's what makes it really weird.
Yeah,
that's true.
When it's like so Republicans, so this abortion is gonna pass, and then people have limits.
and I don't need to black
But also
How does that work? Like, if you look at feels where
bottles with I'm gonna start putting one aside so I can try to
to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to be notified every time a new all of the top without warning and was immediately seen.
That sort of evidence is basically how prosecutors are going to tear down Trump's defense piece by piece.
That is there is no sort of privacy exception to introducing a trial, incriminating information.
Georgia NNBC
Election election. The reason why you're seeing so many.
Just market now.
Were you walking around? London, no. It was also you don't like to do it. What's the balance? It is a better. Just think how. No, yeah, I saw. I think there's merit. I think so too. Have you saw some of these things? Got my German. Getting the damn. Check. Check. I want to believe that you know, there. I'm putting it in my color.
It's like, there's a lot of field. Very impressed with the world. What exactly? They do it. Me too. Because they basically.
The other girl?
Yeah. I read her. Talk about the number of things and
Like 7 days.
Sorry, I think one more time, so whatever he said, he does it, that's fine. He is good at it.
but anyway, I got into a standard because they, I made my application.
Very good.
They wanted me.
And I will.
My
That's okay.
and I thought it was and so I didn't.
There are.
You have 3 songs. I thought about the hours to respond. And I also. It's 9 o'clock. You're rejected. Hasn't responded in 48 hours. It went on from there, but then. But I did not go. Yeah, and I still. wondering whether I should. Talk about.
In both regards, when I visited Moldova last year, it was also completely different in Nigeria.
There is.
Not sure.
I honestly just, I don't know why organizations don't involve that as really a big deal.
I feel like. It was more.
So right now.
I don't think
I want to be more. I was talking.
Well, mostly the Ukrainians, but also a few.
So we'll do like unregulated. I remember from a desk, a couple months ago, actually, our last event, I think we applied to become our marketing manager. And we're so in. We are making it acceptable.
Yeah, I really, as per our conversation, I didn't. Very large.
Hey, you can't read the paper right now. I'm doing well, Molly. Digital media partner, paid media for him. You? I heard you, but I didn't know.
Yeah, like a national. US.
Yeah,
I realized natural.
a lot of change over there afterwards, so it means the volume. Steve is the one here, especially recently. He understands New York a lot.
Very much.
It's so subtle.
Oh,
I realize as an adult how some of that, like, whatever that. Come up over the years, my parent, you know, my father. Years ago. And you are.
Well, that was. You there? All right, did you get it in? Did you get it? Oh, wait.
Well, a lot of Americans.
That time, just from broadly speaking, from the pro-Israel side. There's a number of them. It doesn't strike me as. It doesn't strike me
Benefits of that, but we
There. What in fact comes.
Being there.
Like in 5 minutes, we're gonna start, and for these people, we will need 3 one by one. So, or can you say with us like 20 minutes to do that, okay? Yep. We can double check.
There's no way to. Because it basically denies.
What about? I didn't understand. Let's ask if there is any.
Now they become. They were they got it.
Prevent people from working in that area, so they have. You should be able to have unions, but you should also work.
So we can do that?
So you can do a view
I mean,
for everyone, or you can do it individually, where you swap post by stay with Dr. Wise. I can stay with you guys, but I also have to be at the banquet downstairs. So I will have to.
I mean, just next 15-20 minutes on this panel, because we have to do online. Actually, we don't have online, it's okay.
Okay, but if someone calls me from downstairs, I have to be only.
Okay, so how to switch this, where to switch this?
So you can individually reclaim host here. So when you reclaim it, then you'll be the host. And then.
Just unpin it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, just unpin it.
And then you'll just switch it for whoever is speaking as the host.
Private school teacher. And they oppose. Do this in some way, shape, or form.
Next speaker?
Oh, Kendall. Yeah. Kendall, then so we start in 2 minutes.
So just swap
Okay, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Is that good? What's going on? Yeah. Corona? Okay, give me 1 second. I'm on my way. So just whenever each person is speaking, all you have to do is one, like for him, if he's gonna be speaking, you just click right here. And then you can make him host. That way he'll have control. And then once you make him host, it'll say, what's your name? And then after you're finished with him speaking, you can remove him as a pen and reclaim host right here. Okay. And then do it with the same person. Okay. Okay, I'll be right back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peter, thank you so much for.
Very. It is nice to.
Peter, thank you. I'm only listening to you by Zoom and I have to go. I was on the. So it's cool. I will speak into the next panel about case studies and then about perception.
Yeah.
I mean. Thank you so much for your global.
Thank you for the, well, I was trying to connect the international to what's going on in our country. Because the same basically rejection of civilization. So you go around the country, burning cities down for 120 days and get away with it because, well, we're oppressed.
Okay, so we again out of schedule, but we're trying to hurry up and to be in time. We have 4 more panels. The next, I would like to introduce our pretty moderator, Mariam Ray. Yes.
Certainly, I do know.
Confused with the name. Correct.
Yes.
So Mariam Ray is a policy and government relations professional with progressive experience in leading and advancing public policy, strategic communication, and advocacy design initiatives for a wide range of public, private, and non-profit organizations across Canada. Her expertise includes policy research and analysis, integrated public affairs, community, and grassroots mobilization, and community party, coalitions, and strategic partnerships. Mariam is a former civil servant and actively involved in the political fabric of Canadian politics. Her political experience includes providing policy support to senior political leadership and working on several Canadian federal election campaigns in Canada. She will participate. I'm the forum personally. So we have one more speaker with us offline, and we have 2 or 3 speakers. We'll see with the technical connection who is online with us. And I would ask Mariam just to start with Jorge Kendall, our colleague from Miami, who's got some curves today and he's limited with the time. And then we already have with us another our panelist and speaker, Sigler. And the last one was during the so, but that's on your moderation. So please, I mean, if you wanna introduce the panelists, you wanna ask them to introduce themselves, okay?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed their events and drinks. Is this working?
I don't think so. I might have bit closer.
Sorry, yeah, we need to.
Right now, we're not.
We have Jay Townsend.
Yeah, I'm here.
Could you please?
You want me to come up there?
Yeah. We need to again. I will just ask about some technical issue to try talk in microphone because we have a lot of people who asked us to record and send them afterwards our today conference and some online. So please try to use microphone. I'm not sure I switched in. Could you help me to check? No.
You're the technical expert.
Okay.
And just be close enough to it.
Yeah. Thank you. So George Washington's Good University.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the team for giving me the opportunity to speak, and hello from Canada. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and I found out that I was moderating this session while I was flying on the plane just yesterday. So we're going to take a quick stab at this. I think I want to start off by, of course, graciously thanking our speakers who are joining us both online and offline.
today. I am going to just pass the floor first and foremost to Kendall Kofi. Guys, I see you, Kendall, right there. If you can quickly start with a 1-minute introduction, and then I will introduce the 3 other folks who are joining us online.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for letting me appear virtually. I'm not in San Francisco. I'm from Miami. There's a story behind that, but my role and perspective have really been from a legal standpoint, all aspects of elections and campaigns, criminal, civil. It began actually with an absentee ballot fraud case, which I was successful over the race for the mayor of Miami. We call absentee ballots mail-in ballots, but we actually proved some fraud and changed perhaps the history of Miami.
Great, thank you for that. I'm just adding that Kendall is also annually recognized as one of Florida's trend legal elite and super lawyers. So I know you left that out, but I wanted to highlight that. That is a great accomplishment. And then we've got Jay, who I have the pleasure of meeting. I know you can speak a little bit yourself and you do really quickly.
Oh, sure. I was very lucky at age 17. I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I started volunteering for political campaigns. This is all I've ever done. It's all I've ever wanted to do. I will work until the day I die. I help candidates run for office. Anything they need, I help them get done. So that's what I do for a living.
Thank you, Jay. And just adding really quickly that Jay has also worked in 4 U.S. presidential campaigns, scores of U.S. Senate, gubernatorial, and congressional races. Just adding that really quickly. And then we've got 2 more people who are joining us online. Olivia Logan, are you online?
Not yet.
Okay, so we can come back to Olivia later. And then we've got Will Barbara Taylor. Will, if you'd like to say a couple words about yourself, I'll just give us a quick introduction.
Michael Sidler.
Oh, hello. Hi. Yes, hello from Slovenia. It's midnight here. Yes, I'm also political campaigner. Once I even stood up for a member of the parliament. I was very young at that age. Very close to get in, but at the time I decided that I'm better as a lobbyist than political campaigner, and that for politics and being involved, that I will be in the, how to say, first row. It's still time, even though that I have been asked several times. I was one of the youngest as well in 2004 when we had the first European elections and with the enlargement of European Union. So I was a political campaigner out from Brussels, assigned as from the socialist group, and I have dealt with how to say, one voting region, of course, my country, where we elected the first members of the parliament. Then, of course, I was doing other political campaigns for the presidential elections and for the local elections, and as well, every time when there is some campaign about the laws and, you know, gathering votes in the way that something is, I am in. So I know all the tactics, how it is, and this is, how to say, my drive actually and my hobby.
Great, thank you, Michal. And Michal and I met Michal in Slovenia just a couple of months ago. Slovenia is a beautiful country, and Michal is absolutely amazing. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to quickly start off with about a couple of questions here, and I'm just going to throw it at everyone independently so we can get everyone's perspective. So the first question I have is on political branding. As we all know, political branding has evolved tremendously over the past years, from candidates who historically would present themselves as thoughtful, competent, and accessible to now more aggressive, loud, controversial, firebrands. What, in your opinion, do you think, how does that impact the health of our democracy, and what are some of the consequences of the change in political branding? I'm going to throw this question at Kendall first. So Kendall, perhaps you could enlighten
Well,
that.
I think it's been a bad thing for democracy. Everyone is so polarized. No one wants to listen to anyone else. People don't believe the mainstream media very much. They just want to be reinforced and hear and read again what they already believe in whatever social media they access. And of course, a lot of forces, I think, contribute to this. Fundraising, especially internet fundraising, doesn't attract dollars when you put out a message through an email blast or a text blast that says, gee, my candidate's a really good person. Let me tell you about their qualifications. Heck no, you don't raise money with that. You raise money with, frankly, and it comes from both sides, pretty vicious attacks on somebody else. So please keep these evil people from taking control. So we've all seen that. I think we're frustrated by it, but what is the path out of this, the path forward? That remains, to me at least, a big mystery.
That's great. Shannon, would you like to offer your comments on this?
Yeah. The reason people do it is because right now it works. I mean, hate trumps hope. The branding is now quite often, vote for me because I hate the same people you hate. It raises money. Look at what I'm fighting. I'm going to try and shut that person up. I'm going to censor that member of Congress because I don't like what she said. It raises money. Look at me. I'm Matt. I got rid of the Speaker of the House almost single-handedly. Look at the way I've transformed democracy. It raised millions of dollars. Voters right now give money to that stuff. But when they get sick and tired of it, or when they get sick of what I call the performance art, and it comes time when the problems that are unattended because of the performance art gets to a point where it really begins to bug the people whose problems are being allowed to fester, they'll turn the page and say, I'm sick of this crap. Fix my problem. Shut up. I don't care who you hate anymore. I want to know that you're going to do something good for me. When you have a polarized electorate where you're fighting down to the last 2 or 3 inches for every vote in swing states or in your particular demographic constituency, we do that stuff. But after a while, people do get sick of it. And when people get sick of it and they quit giving money to people who do it, they'll go back to something more positive.
Do you guys have, just a quick question that's coming to my mind. What are some of the constructive solutions that you could offer to this sort of emerging problem that's out of control and it's become a global sort of phenomenon?
In terms of fundraising or just this nasty branding?
The nasty branding.
I'm often reminded of Churchill's career. And he spent a long time in the political wilderness, was shunned because he dared to say, we cannot trust Hitler. We cannot do business with that guy. This guy is dangerous. And nobody wanted to hear it when he started to say it. But he never contorted himself to be where the public was at the time. He said, I am not going to turn my back on what I believe here. I will keep warning people, and I will wait on the electorate to come to me. That made him prime minister, because when the population of England figured out that Churchill had been right all along, who did they turn to lead the country and vanquish Hitler? Germany, and to win a war. Here's a fact about being in public life. Is you may not always be completely in line with the voters that you're asking to support you. If you have any sort of moral code, you either are willing to betray causes that are really important to you, or you're always willing to stick to your guns and say, I can't agree with you on that. So sometimes I have to tell clients, say, you're running against the tide on your beliefs here. You can develop a constituency by clearly stating those beliefs in this campaign, and they will carry you to victory in a future campaign when the public comes around to your point of view. But if you try and contort who you really are and you bend to the moment, you will look like a whore, and you'll hate yourself when you look in the mirror. And by the way, they'll eventually figure it out. I had this with a candidate in Iowa. He kept wanting to say, Biden cheated. Trump won. The election was a fraud. All of this, he wouldn't stop talking about it. And one day I finally called him and I said, you know, I hate to tell you this, but I know deep down you know better. And he said, yeah, but they want the raw meat. And I said, you're going to booger your political career. You are going to lose this way, and you will never be a viable candidate for public office again. Because eventually these people that you're tossing red meat figure out that you knew better. They will figure out, as smart as you were and as well-read as you, that you knew what you were saying was bullshit. They will hate you for it. That's exactly what he did. I parted company with him because he wouldn't quit saying it. And he lost, and his career is over. Iowans are not stupid. They re-elected a U.S. senator in a primary who had dared to say, I'm sorry, but Trump lost. He told the truth. And they rewarded him for telling the truth. So there is a certain moral that I think is really important in democracies where for every famous person that we've seen in politics that we rewarded for their courage, there were people who sacrificed their careers in the name of truth, doing the right thing. And that's why we had that book that Kennedy wrote, Profiles in Courage. Someday we're going to have to update that book. But ultimately, it's what do you want to think of yourself when it's your time's up as you leave this earth? You want to be proud of who you were? Or you want to be in that dustbin of history with the grifters and the creeps who made it very difficult to run this country. That's my soapbox. I didn't mean to get off on it. But
no, those are great, powerful, thoughtful words for all of us to reflect upon. Kendall, we're just going to go to you really quickly too. I know you're waiting with bated breath to tell us a little bit about what you think.
Well, just a reaction to where does all this go? I want to talk about money a little bit. You know, originally it was seen a wonderful thing when there were small donations from a lot of people. A name that's mostly forgotten now, 20 years ago, was Howard Dean, governor of Vermont. He got over 300,000 contributors, small amounts. And he skyrocketed, by the way, to the top of the Democratic polls. Everybody thought he was certain to get the nomination at the end of 2003. And, well, he disappeared a few months later. Just a reminder, I guess, that, you know, today's polls, a whole lot can change and will change. But after Dean at least showed what small contributors could do, Obama had huge amount of success with it. And he really had a very sophisticated team that used the internet to raise money like, you know, nobody had ever raised before, and got in 2012, I think, like $690 million online. And so that became, you know, the focus. And now, of course, we've seen billions on both sides raised online with what I've described is
mostly very nasty messaging about how evil the other side is. There's evidence that there's starting to be fatigue, that people are like me. I must get 10 of these emails a day. I happen to be a Democrat, so you can imagine how terrible I must think the other side is, because I keep getting these emails. And obviously this stuff, you zone out on it because it's not credible. But I don't know if the base of small donors starts to shrink because people are overdosed on it. Where does that take us? And it's just a reminder that there are over 700 billionaires in the United States, and that PACs, which you've heard about today, which include so-called dark money, that is money that can go into PACs, which can then spend money on elections as long as they don't coordinate with candidates, that is soaring and leaving the small contributors behind. How good or how bad is that? In a recent cycle for federal, congressional, and Senate candidates, out of about, I think, 12 million or so, 14 million PACs put in 9 billion. And that's basically wealthy donors. So the small donors are still out there, and they're being worked very aggressively. But, I think we're getting into an era where the billionaire PACs are going to have an even bigger voice, because whatever we think or say about politics, money still talks. I think that's the consensus of all your panels. And if the base of small donors shrinks because they're fed up with getting all the unpleasant emails, it shifts just more power to the PACs and as I say, the 700 plus billionaires in this country. And there's nothing wrong with being billionaires, by the way. I have as many billionaire friends as I can possibly attract. If any billionaires in the room, I'd be delighted to have lunch with you.
Okay. Yeah, me?
Yeah, Michal, you wanna?
Okay. Yes.
Go to Michal, and Michal, you can give us a quick perspective on how political branding has sort of shaped up in Slovenia and the role of fundraising during your experience.
Yeah, I can tell for Slovenia and also for the Europe itself anyway. As a contrario to United States, of course, we are a democratic country and we have parliamentary democracies and proportional system, but we have very, very regulated, how to say, campaign fundraising. Of course, it's for every constituency. It's also down to the each elector, each voter, how much you can spend. And this is the money, because everyone wishes to be the equal in the game. That you really see who has the best program and who is, how to say, political program, and who is proactive or good for the people. However, we are now in the era as well where majority of Slovenian parties, they wish to a little bit change the system, but not in the system of the fundraising, but the system about the constituency, how actually the proportional system will work. The thing is that, however, all the political parties, they are of course tempted that they could have more money and more fundraisers. And then you have these illegal attempts of the marketing agencies in which they are actually getting money from the sponsors, and they are maybe assigned to some political party or the candidate, and they bypass this account, because every political party in the times of the election campaign, so it means 1 month, it's election campaign for the parliament. And in this, and also at the local elections, you have just this 1 month, you have to publish your account and whatever you get from the donors, from the sponsors in that respect. And then after this is done, after the election, of course, they have to have report. And then the accountancy court, the Court of Auditors in Slovenia, is actually reviewing everything, if everything was okay. But the thing is that they are bypassing a lot of candidates, and then they have these marketing agencies, and then of course they get some money, and then those marketing agencies are influencing media and elsewhere. So you can see who is having a rich campaign or not. I think that's in some other countries in Europe also the same. The thing is that we also see a lot of, in this respect, a lot of also nasty branding. But I will say in which when you have some of the candidates or opposition parties or who is actually campaigning against you, putting a lot of bets, political issues, political agendas against the candidate, and actually putting this, maybe even walking now in the area of the hate speech. And we also have regulated that. So we regulated hate speech as well. I'm now personally involved. I was personally involved last year in the presidential election, because I was supporting and actually organizing political campaign for our lady president for Republic. And actually in this, we had a total different system. We didn't actually have any political party who would be supporting our candidate. So we actually organized all the country as one constituency, and we got voters. So of course, with the tools of the social media and everything, we actually established this, internet groups or Facebook groups, then Viber groups or so, and we helped each other. And we had from 5,000 to 7,000 volunteers, and in each region. And then through them, we actually helped that we had the voluntary campaign all over the country. It was very difficult because in the first round, but our candidate, she was so popular that she won the first round, and then afterwards for the second round it was very easy because the other political parties actually participated and supported. And then afterwards, when she was elected, of course, suddenly also the other campaigning came, but that was much more international. One is different. That was for the UN Security Council. So the law in Slovenia regarding the political campaigning is the same for each, regarding sponsorship, donors, and so. So in this way, I like that we are heavily regulated, that everyone could have a chance and be elected. Thank you.
That's a good part of that. I'm just questions coming to mind for me. Do you recommend that our American friends here sort of borrow some of the regulatory practices from Europe or from Canada when it comes to managing election financing? Is that something that you would recommend? And then I want to hear from Jay and Kendall about can we regulate in some way or shape or form in terms of fundraising and election?
Again me?
No, I guess I'll just throw that question in Kendall. Like what sort of solutions, because we're sort of talking about the solutions. Can we focus on election financing rules? How do we regulate?
I think we're going to go back. We will return to a day when we regret that Supreme Court decision in 2010 that created this Pandora's box. J.D. Vance sits in the United States Senate because Peter Thiel bought him a Senate seat in Ohio. There's something inherently wrong about that. He put $35 million into that guy's campaign. J.D. Vance couldn't raise a nickel for himself. Peter Thiel paid for the whole damn thing. They did it through a super PAC. And they had this little website out there that was not made publicly available. And Peter Thiel's PAC was supplying all of the polling information and all of this other stuff that the campaign needed to tell J.D. Vance and what to say on the stump. It wasn't even camouflage. And they couldn't do anything about it because our FEC is now powerless because they can't rule on any dispute. This is a broken system. We're lucky our democracy is not always already falling apart. So, you know what? I don't know how we overturned that Supreme Court decision in 2010. If it may take a constitutional amendment, maybe that's what it'll take. Maybe there's a way to regulate around it. But this is filthy because our political dialogue, our political well is filled with this filth of people on both sides who are throwing checks at people and have no limits on what they can spend. Hell, even candidates no longer have control of their message because the super PACs are overwhelming what they say with their own money. It's sick to me. I would hope we'll figure out a way to fix it. I'm going to mention New York City, which to me is the fairest one that I have seen ever invented. If you're running for city office in New York City, you can take $1,000 checks from people, but that's it. That's it. You can't take any more than that. What the city will do is, among those who contribute up to $250 to your campaign, once you've raised a certain threshold number of people in a certain amount, you give your information to the Board of Elections and they will match 8-to-1, 9-to-1 now. They'll pay for your campaign. Candidates then go about campaigning and trying to win an election instead of spending all of their time during the campaign trying to raise money from rich people. You know what? It's really cleaned up politics in New York City. It is cleaner now than it's ever been. It is fairer now. We are electing people whose voices would have otherwise been drowned out or obscured, who have interesting things to say and are passionate about fixing a certain problem that needs to be attention. If we could ever emulate that kind of thing in the United States, I think it would be better than what we have now.
Great, thank you very much. Kendall, I just want to go to you really quickly and sort of wrap us up here. I am getting the signals to end this soon. Is Kendall still around?
Yes, of course I'm around.
All right.
Well, look, I agree completely with the comments that were just made. It's a discouraging time in the sense of the ideals of America. You know, the press, the newspapers, the media that used to seem trustworthy, people pretty much don't believe them now. They get their own news. The only hope has to come from a couple things. One is that because everybody's got access to the media through the internet, I mean, all of a sudden you don't have to own a newspaper or have a printing press or anything else to be able to get your voice out there. What we have to hope is that there's going to be sort of a national fatigue over, frankly, the viciousness from both sides, a national fatigue over the fact that giant, crazy amounts of money seem to be pushing the results of elections, and that because kind of everybody can be their own newspaper or their own broadcasting system, that there can be from a lot of voices some greater sense of wisdom. You know, that's what the founders of our country thought. Let everybody speak, let everybody weigh in. And from those combination of voices, there will be a fundamental rationality and decency. So that's what we hope for. That's what we pray for.
Amen. Do we have any questions in the audience really quickly before we close the date?
So one of the ideas that was brought up earlier in this conversation was the idea that small dollar donations, primarily at this point, which are raised online, come with a certain natural threat to democracy because the messaging that you need to project in order to get those donations is one of hate, violence, anger. No one's donating to hope because, you know, my candidate is good. In my mind, the alternative to that is large dollar donors from the PACs from individuals or just simply ultra-rich candidates running and self-financing their campaign. I guess I'm not sure if this is a question better suited for Jay or for Kendall, but in the absence of big dollar donors, small dollar donors who want that red meat will be the deciding class, donor class of either political party. And apparently that's not good because they're going to elect people that are going to be spewing hate to get more sound bites for their fundraising emails. Alternatively, leaving it with PACs and the rich also doesn't seem to be a great idea. How do we get, what is the solution to get out of it?
All right. Not all candidates raise money with hate. I too get 30 emails a day. And every time I open my Facebook, there's KOC. I gave her $25 when she was starting. And she's never forgotten. She was on the Facebook page every day telling me how much she needs money, more money. Right. But I look at her emails. It is not slash and burn in total hatred with her. She may say, I believe this and I'm going to fight for this, and there are those trying to stop me from doing this. She may say, they've recruited a MAGA guy to run against me, and he's already got more money than I do. Can you make sure I don't get drowned out by that stuff? But she doesn't spew it. It's people who are more extreme than they are that spew that stuff. And I just, after a while, just junk them or unsubscribe, and I can't stand looking at it. So political action committees are going to be here for a while. But my objection to this sort of stuff is super PACs. Anonymous money coming into either them or these nonprofit organizations that you have no idea who's doing it, what their motivation is, and neither do the voters. That's all right. You want to take money from a crook and you got to put it on your report and you have to defend the fact that you took money from some mafioso. Okay, good. You want to live with that question? Fine. It's the way they do it now is I don't even know the crooks or what the motivation is of the people putting up for the money. For all I know, money's been siphoned into the United States by some Russian rogue.
I just want to add a quick comment to that because that's very important about the dark money. The one thing that could be done is laws could be passed that would require disclosure of those sources. Right now, there's a kind of a couple tricks and people are avoiding it. For a while, some in the Democratic Party were trying to push for greater disclosure. Since then, I think what they've been trying to do is just get more money from the same kind of sources for their own campaigns. But if there were a public message about dark money and making sure that it's disclosable, just as my colleague described, that's something that would help.
And I can add to this as well. In this respect, in Europe, it's also in other countries, and now even though I have seen with not just with political campaigning, but also with media and with media owners and whoever is having whatever campaign, not even the times of the elections, but at the times where you are actually promoting some law or some change of the law. Now you have to be into the register and you have to report and actually where the money is coming from and what's your aim to do. And I think this is transparency, democracy, and that you see what are the roots of such a campaign. And I think that's important, that that not only, how to say, the media could also provide with the dark money and go. And the second thing it is, everything is becoming digital, and being digital is more transparent. And I think that's something which is good for us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Brilliant discussion. Thank you, Michal, Kendall, and of course, Jay, for blessing us with your insight and experience, and a round of applause for
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Again for your